There's been a lot more attention paid to data collection and sharing because of the discussions around the National Security Agency and the, some of the erroneous reporting about tech companies essentially giving data willy-nilly to the government. But it's great that we're having these discussions in the open right now. There has to be some availability of data on networks for law enforcement and for anti-terrorism reasons. It has to be carefully controlled, and I think that that's ultimately the equilibrium that we'll get to out of these discussions. But I think it's wonderful that we're having them. Startups have to be clear about what data they're going to collect and about how they're going to share it. They want to be reasonably broad, but not so broad that they end up not really letting people know what they're doing. The abandon all hope ye who enter here privacy policy isn't something that's going to fly with most consumers, and it's not going to fly with most regulators either. So you have to find a reasonable balance to strike in being complete, but not overwhelming people. It's not having a policy and not thinking about the data that they're collecting is one of the things that I see most often. And then there are ones who say, okay, well, we've got to have a policy, some privacy policy. We'll copy somebody else's privacy policy and not map it to the actual data stuff that we're doing. And that's how a lot of companies get into trouble by saying, oh, we're not going to share it with third parties. We're not going to share data with third parties. It's like, well, no, your whole business is being, for some of them, like an ad network, for instance, your whole business is about being a platform for efficient sharing of data with third parties. So, that has to be explained well, and startups miss that all the time. The first thing to do and the most important thing to do is to find out what happened, what actually happened, and have a clear communications plan with your customers and with the press and with regulators about that. A lot of state laws have changed where if there's a security breach, for instance, you now have to notify customers if their personal information, usually in the financial area, has been compromised. And so that's why you'll often get, people will get letters from their credit card company saying, we lost this data tape, we don't know where it is, your personal information's on it, but that's all we know. And then sometimes there will be hacker incidents where they have to Sony, most prominently in the video game space, had to do extensive notifications recently. So sometimes there are legal obligations to notify when those things go wrong, which is all the more reason you don't want them to go wrong. Well, I mean, one of the things that people always end up talking about with regard to Facebook and privacy is what happened with regards to the introduction of Beacon in 2007. And, there was a really bad communications plan, unfortunately, around that. And part of that was because the actual product features were still being figured out at the very last minute, when it got rolled out. But if you look at what Beacon was supposed to be, it exists today. It's critical to the Facebook network. It's called Facebook Connect. And that's what Beacon was really supposed to be. It wasn't an advertising platform. It wasn't, this sort of nefarious attempt to snarf personal data off third-party sites without anybody knowing about it. It was the ability to interact with those third-party sites in a meaningful way and get that data back to share through the newsfeed on Facebook with people's permission and control. The first implementation was awful. And it got fixed very quickly, and that's one of the reasons why, as things evolved, Facebook Connect is turned into one of the most useful features on the web.